Hello Tony, welcome to the University of the West of England. It's really good to see you. You've had quite a week, but we'll get on to that in a minute. Now you've had a 30-year career at the top of the global energy business. So can I ask you what your predictions are for something like 2030? Because I know my Vice-Chancellor is writing the university strategy that far in advance. So how do you think, what will the energy mix be like by 2030?
Well, that's of course what I'm going to be talking about this evening. So, I think if you look at the global level, then the big picture is we are going through a very, very gradual evolution, and in 10 years' time, not very much will have changed. The one area where we could see some very significant change is the electrification of the automobile fleet, personal cars. I think there is a lot of evidence now that we're sort of approaching a tipping point where the manufacturers of automobiles have created a product that consumers are going to want to buy. So rather than something that's been mandated by governments, the production industry, the automobile industry has finally got to a place where they've got an offering that is sufficiently attractive and sufficiently competitively priced that people are going to start buying electric vehicles. And it'll be small to start with, but it'll grow, and there are some projections that by 2030 the world will be selling 30 million electric cars a year, which is about a third of global car sales. That would be a big change.
So have you invested in an electric car? Do you
I
have
haven't,
one?
but I think it's quite likely that my next one may well be. I'm looking very seriously at it, as are many people I know, and I think a lot of people will start buying them as their, if people have got two cars, one car, I don't know, they sort of use seriously, another one they use to go to do the shopping and stuff. It'll be the shopping one. But it poses quite a few challenges for the world, both in terms of resources to build them and where's the energy going to come from to power them.
So you're a man, if you don't mind me saying, that's used to a few challenges, not least a few controversies. You were the head of BP, now the head of Glencore. It's obviously been quite a week with the Paradise Papers. What I'm particularly interested in, though, is what do you need to be a leader of a global company whose reputation might take a hit or a series of hits? What is it about being a leader of that company? What do you need?
Well, you need to be somewhat robust, I suspect. I think confidence in doing the right things, knowing that we're doing the right things on the ground, in wherever it is. Clarity about where you're trying to take the enterprise. Confidence in knowing how the company is actually performing, not being too influenced by the noise you hear in the media. I mean, I think there's a signal to noise ratio issue in the media today, particularly as it pertains to social media. So I think being clear about what you know and sticking to the facts and sticking to the substance of the story, not being distracted by all the noise that comes with whenever you have a sort of situation like this.
So how do you manage that internally in the company? Because clearly you are robust as an individual, and you say that's important in your leadership style, but not everybody in the company will be that robust, I guess. So how do you help them protect themselves from that noise, or get a handle, to balance the noise? What it is.
The way I think about that is how do you help your employees with the dinner party conversation, and that's actually about clarity of internal communication, having really good communication about the facts, not all the interpretations, the suppositions, the presumptions, but the facts. What actually are the facts here? What actually did happen, what has happened, what are we actually doing? So internal communication through any sort of crisis in a large organisation, doesn't matter what the organisation is really important, so that the people in the organisation have got the facts, can articulate the facts, and can deal with the dinner party conversation.
Yeah, because it is about the dinner party conversation as important because it's about their own personal values, isn't it, really?
Their
And whether
own self-esteem, that they're working for a company that's a good company and, you know, not doing bad things.
No, which is, you know, very often, certainly big global companies and energy, I'm sure you would agree, does not get a good press, even if you would say it was doing good things.
It's bizarre, really, because it's energy that lifts people out of poverty. Without energy, there is poverty. With energy, poverty is generally, not always, but generally eliminated.
And what about your leadership to your shareholders then? Can you kind of quantify how important reputation is to the bottom line on a bank balance?
Well, I think it's very important. There's no doubt that in today's world, reputation is, you know, that people have talked about this thing called the triple bottom line forever, but it is. You need, as a large global company, you need to be seen to be doing good things. So it's a very important dimension of how shareholders view companies. There's no doubt about it. And you know, the dealing with shareholders is perhaps not so different with dealing with your employees. It's clarity of communication, you know, the facts, making them aware of, you know, the reality versus all the other stuff that goes on in moments when companies are having a bit of a tough time. I hesitate to use the word crisis. I certainly don't think Glencore's having a crisis this week. We have some reputational issues that we need to deal with, which I believe we're dealing with. And you know, in this particular case, this is old news being rehashed through a different source, but it's sort of old news.
Okay, so this sort of broke in terms of the mainstream media at the weekend. So when did you start your
several weeks ago?
Several weeks ago, your crisis management. Yeah. So that just explain how that works actually, because I think that's quite interesting as well. It's sort of how do you manage your campaign up to this moment and knowing what you were going to say?
Well, I think, you know, like I say, clarity of communication, the facts, what actually are the facts, not how people have interpreted facts, but what actually are the facts, and ensuring that people have the facts. And that's true for shareholders, it's true for the media, those of whom wish to have a dialogue, and of course our employers.
And you do put yourself up for interviews. You don't shirk the responsibility, which is also quite. We hadn't done very much this week, and I wasn't going to not do this evening because of this. So I'm here, but I'm not here to talk about Glencore particularly. I'm here to talk about a subject that's dear to my heart, which is this thing called the energy revolution. Yeah, absolutely. So the energy revolution. You've talked about your predictions for 2030. It's lucrative and it's highly pressurised. How do you cope with your pressure? What do you do to offload your pressure?
Well, personally, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I engage in various sports as my main source of pressure release. Actually, I mean, I always have done. I mean, my passions today are cycling and sailing, and that's for me has always been a good pressure release. I mean, I have to say I'm a chairman today, right? There's a big difference between being the CEO of a company and the chairman of a company, and it's quite rare for a chairman to feel very pressured, I would say. Can happen, but it's unusual. It's the CEO's the guy running the company, and that's really where most of the pressure in a big public company is.
So do you prefer being a chair to a CEO?
I think they're both great things to have done. I wouldn't want to be a CEO today. I'm 60 years old now. I've done that. I did it a couple of times. You get to a stage in life where you say it's actually nice just to have a bit more time and a bit more flexibility and not be so driven by the demands of others. The thing about being a CEO of a big organisation, doesn't matter whether it's a public company, the head of a large government department or a prime minister, the challenge is always time. Everyone wants a piece of your time. And people only want to talk to you. They don't want to talk to someone who could actually deal with it. They only want to talk to the person at the top. So it becomes an enormous challenge of time management. Enormous. It's the biggest challenge of being a CEO, is managing your time. You have very little of it. and almost none of it for you at the end of the day.
No, I can imagine work-life balance doesn't exist really, does it? So when you were graduating from university then, was your ambition to be the CEO of a global company?
No,
What did you
not
think
at all.
when you left university?
I graduated with a degree in geology, and I actually did a PhD in geology after my first degree. I was passionate about geology. I still am, actually. It's remained one of my passions. I joined BP to be a geologist. I joined BP to work as a rig geologist in the North Sea in 1982. And I didn't know what CEO did, not a clue. I mean, my aspiration at the time was probably to become the chief geologist at BP, which is a role we eliminated about 15 years ago. So I had, you know, what I was clear about was that I was passionate about geology. I loved it, and I think that's really important, that whatever you do in life, you follow your passion. Because if you're following your passion, you're committed to it, you'll spend a lot of time doing it, and you'll probably be quite good at it. And it probably means you'll be reasonably successful.
So you've undoubtedly you've learned an enormous amount over your career. Do you have one thing that you might have found helpful as the young Tony just graduating now? If there was one thing that you could say to your younger self.
Well, it's what I say to all the young people I interact with, and indeed I said to my son, who's 27 and been through the process of trying to figure out what to do with his life, and my daughter, follow your passion. Whatever it is, follow it, because if you do, you'll be good at what you're doing. Secondly, don't take no for an answer. I applied to join BP 3 times before they accepted me. So I got rejected after my first degree. Second time around, I can't remember what happened, and it wasn't until the third time that I actually was successful. And the third thing is take risks, not silly risks, but if someone asks you, do you want to go and do X, and you think, I'm not sure I can really deal with that, go for it. Go for it. And someone gave me a little plaque a long time ago that says, what would you not try if you knew you could not fail? And that's a great way of thinking about how to pursue a career. Every opportunity you get, go for it.
That's a very good piece of advice. Tony, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.